There are two sayings burned into the galactic consciousness, forever a reminder of what it means to deal with peaceful Deathworlders. Humanity arrived on the galactic scene with little fanfare, just another species discovering the means of FTL communications that any proper civilization used instead of slow and fallible electromagnetic waves, then reaching far enough from their homeworld to make direct contact. And, like many species, first contact was tentative and peaceful. At first glance, there was nothing special about them. A physically smaller species, gradually climbing the tech ladder towards being properly interstellar. It wasn't until diplomats from the Kreen, humanity's first neighbours, came to visit a human colony that the truth came out. Their ship came into orbit, made initial scans, and its internal alarm sounded to alert the Kreen aboard that they were preparing to land on a death world. There was a great scramble, much confusion, fear of a betrayal, but it became clear soon enough. These new compact beings actually lived on that death world, and indeed, originated from one that was even worse. Diplomatic talks were held in orbit, and the news spread through the galactic community. Somehow, impossibly, a species of Deathworlders had built a civilization able to reach the stars. And yet, humans didn't act at all like the horror stories that had been made up around spacefaring Deathworlds. They were friendly, community-minded, and readily bonded with nearly anything, sometimes even to their peril. They could be dangerous. Certainly you wouldn't survive on a Deathworld otherwise. Fast, agile, adaptable, and unbelievably durable. But humanity was, as a whole, incredibly peaceful. It was this last trait that truly made them stand out among the galactic community. Humans wanted peace. As they spread through the stars, it was always with an open hand. They tried to make friends with everything. Other races, dangerous creatures, it didn't matter. And it was often easy for them to live in peace. They readily adapted to planets that no one else wanted. And whenever a conflict did start to brew, humanity solved it with words. They would tolerate insults, accept concessions, make generous offers. It seemed, as a civilization at least, they would do anything to avoid fighting. It came to the point where humanity's friends often felt they needed to stick up for these small, overly friendly beings, to keep them from being taken advantage of. When pressed or accused of cowardice, their diplomatic corps would speak the first of the two sayings: war is hell. The galactic community heard this. They asked and learned that hell was a concept out of religion, a place of punishment. But they didn't understand. Not truly. Not yet. The Vilraki hegemony changed that. The Vilraki were aggressive, expansionist, one of the great powers in the galaxy, and, at last, they turned their eyes onto humanity. Sure, humans were physically formidable, but what did that matter when battles were fought with starships? Certainly they lived on useless worlds, but would be ideal for extracting value from those worlds, and their durability would make them excellent laborers. And, ultimately, humans were cowards that avoided war at any cost, treating it like some divine punishment. Humanity tried to do what they seemed to do best: talk. And for a time, the Vilraki responded, always pushing, always pressuring, always trying to take more, and humanity backed down, again and again and again. The allies of humanity tried to help where they could, but none could risk the directed ire of the Vilraki. None could commit to open conflict with them. Then the Vilraki stopped talking, seized and executed humanity's diplomats, bombarded an outlying colony, and ordered humanity to surrender to Vilraki rule. The last recorded words of the chief diplomat were these: "May God have mercy on us all." The war was over before it truly began. Spies and saboteurs struck deep behind enemy lines. Key points in the Vilraki supply chains were destroyed. Critical vulnerabilities exploited, that the hegemony itself wasn't aware of. And when humanity descended on the fractured Vilraki, it was with fleets the galaxy didn't even know they had, unleashing weapons no one had heard of. The war was short by galactic standards, yet it would take a great deal of time to fully calculate the death toll. Humanity took their losses as well, but the Vilraki were crushed. Humanity's attacks seemed tailor-made to counter their forces. Systems were deployed that compromised their fleet and planetary defenses. Their capital world was ultimately left to waste. One of the mightiest empires in the galaxy, obliterated by these excessively friendly pacifists. When humanity's diplomats were at last returned to the fore, it was with terribly simple terms. Unconditional surrender. The hegemony was finished. Its conquered peoples took their independence without a fight, and the Vilraki never again rose to prominence. War is hell. The galaxy understood now. Their old horror stories were true. Deathworlders among the stars. A nightmare. The difference was that humanity was self-aware enough, by dint of having survived themselves for so long, to not want to be those monsters. They fought so hard for peace because they knew what it meant for them to wage war. And once the war was finished, humanity went right back to being their known selves. They set about helping the survivors, aiding the civilians they tried, even in their wrath, to avoid harming, striving to get things back the way they liked it. Peaceful. The second saying, though, that one only came into galactic knowledge in the aftermath of the conflict, later known as the Vilraki's Folly. It was heard as the civilizations of the galaxy were trying to figure out how that mighty polity had been so swiftly and soundly defeated. How humans had, apparently in an instant, devised perfect counters to Vilraki technologies and tactics. How they had so quickly found and struck at Vilraki weak points. And so was repeated a human adage, so ancient, that the language it was spoken in had died before humans even industrialized. Si vis pacem, para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. The galaxy had gotten so focused on the fact that humans were peaceful that they forgot what it meant to be a Deathworlder. To live on a world that perpetually sought your demise. Everything was a potential threat, and you thrived by being ready for it, by anticipating it and preparing to counter it. Certainly, humanity had ascended to the point that the worlds they lived on no longer truly threatened them, but old instincts die hard. All the while that humanity talked and traded and made friends and avoided conflict, elements of their civilization studied everything they encountered as potential foes. They planned and plotted and prepared, obsessively. All this in answer to a thought that many of their kind just couldn't keep out of their heads. What if we have to fight them one day? It hadn't been instant. There was no miracle. Humanity had been making ready to fight the Vilraki long before the first threat had been made, simply because they existed. And it was with dread that the galaxy realized they were all subject to the same scrutiny by this small species that was so quick to make friends. War is hell, and yet, if you want peace, prepare for war. Never again would the galaxy forget that the key word in Peaceful Deathworlder was not peaceful.